You were standing in the corner of a private dining room at a Michelin-star restaurant. The air smells of white truffles, aged steak, and expensive cigar smoke. Your eyes scan the waitstaff, tracking the micro-expressions of the sommelier, the precise hand placement of the busboy clearing the plates. In your earpiece, a soft, static click tells you the perimeter is secure. You feel the familiar, heavy pressure of the Glock 19 holstered tight against your ribs, the steel warming to your body temperature. 3 years ago, you were working standard executive protection. Before that, military police. You had a mortgage in the suburbs, a wife who was looking at preschools, and a bank account that shrank a little more each month. When the boutique security firm reached out, they described the client only as a high-net-worth logistics executive with unique privacy needs. The starting salary was triple what you were making, plus untaxable bonuses paid entirely in crisp $100 bills. During your first few weeks, you drove a matte black SUV and stood stoically outside glass-walled office buildings. It felt exactly like any other corporate security gig. You wore a tailored suit, kept your sunglasses clean, and opened heavy oak doors. You felt proud. You were providing for your family. The shifts in your routine are gradual, almost imperceptible. The logistics meetings stop happening in boardrooms and start happening at 2 a.m. in abandoned commercial warehouses or the VIP back rooms of gentlemen's clubs. You begin sweeping the boss's vehicles for magnetic GPS trackers and listening devices every morning. You are handed a secondary, unregistered firearm with filed-off serial numbers and told to keep it strapped to your ankle at all times. When the boss meets with men covered in prison tattoos, men whose eyes hold zero empathy, you tell yourself you were just a shield. You are paid a premium to protect a life, not to judge the morality of how that life is lived. The thick envelopes of cash you bring home smooth over any arguments with your wife. You buy a larger house. You upgrade her car. You stop asking questions about the blood on the money. It happens on a rainy Tuesday in a soundproofed basement beneath a legitimate car dealership. The boss is auditing a mid-level distributor who came up short on his weekly collections. You were standing by the heavy steel door, hands clasped behind your back. You expect a harsh verbal negotiation. Instead, the boss simply nods at 2 other men in the room. They wrap the distributor's hands in silver duct tape and pull out a heavy pair of industrial bolt cutters. The bound man screams, begging for his life, his terrified eyes locking directly onto yours. You feel a massive surge of adrenaline, your ingrained training screaming at you to intervene, to protect the vulnerable. The boss turns his head and looks directly at you. He doesn't say a single word, but the silent expectation is absolute. You grip the handle of the steel door, turning the deadbolt to ensure no one comes in. You stand there for 45 excruciating minutes, listening to the wet, heavy sounds of a human being being methodically broken. When it is finally over, you hand the boss a wet towel to wipe the red mist from his hands. You have crossed the invisible line. You are no longer a shield. You are the lock on a torture chamber.
The visceral horror of the violence quickly loses its shock value. It ceases to be a moral failing and becomes a mere logistical problem. You learn exactly which cleaning chemicals remove biological stains from imported leather upholstery. You memorize the patrol routes and shift changes of local law enforcement so you can perfectly time the quiet movement of problematic cargo. You stop seeing the people around you as human beings. They are strictly categorized as assets, threats, or collateral damage. Your resting heart rate no longer spikes when weapons are drawn. When a rival syndicate attempts a drive-by shooting in a crowded plaza, you return fire with terrifying clinical precision. You step directly over a dying rival without a second glance, grabbing your principal by the collar to extract him. The adrenaline doesn't even hit you until hours later. Eventually, after a few more months, the adrenaline stops coming at all. The psychological isolation creeps in like a slow, numbing poison. You cannot talk to your wife about your day. When she asks why you have dark, rusted stains on the soles of your shoes, you lie smoothly, without a microsecond of hesitation. But she notices the fundamental change in your baseline behavior. You are distant, cold, always scanning windows and exits. You are physically incapable of sitting with your back to a door in any public space. You wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in cold sweats, your hand already gripping the pistol that permanently rests on your nightstand. The marriage dissolves quietly, without any dramatic shouting matches. She simply leaves one afternoon, and you don't stop her. You don't try to win her back because you know deep down she is infinitely safer, as far away from you as possible. You delete your old military friends from your phone. You have no identity left outside of the dark shadow you cast behind the boss. One evening in late December, you are working a high society charity gala downtown. You stand rigidly by the VIP tables, watching the glittering room. You see your boss laughing warmly, clinking crystal champagne flutes with the city's chief of police and the leading candidate for state governor. You watch the politician casually slip a thick, familiar manila envelope into his tailored tuxedo jacket. The police chief claps your boss on the shoulder like an old fraternity brother, sharing a private joke. The illusion of a thick, impenetrable line between the violent underworld and polite civil society shatters completely in your mind. You realize there is no grand war between the law and the criminals. It is all one single, massive, intertwined machine of leverage, corruption, and capital. You are just a very small, incredibly well-paid gear keeping the teeth sharp. The brutal violence you witness in damp basements is exactly what pays for the vintage champagne being poured in this ballroom. You walk the boss out of the hotel and back to the armored SUV. The neon city lights reflect off the bulletproof tinted glass. You open the heavy reinforced door, scan the empty street with Predator's eyes, and close him safely inside. You climb into the passenger seat and rest your hand on your lap, inches from your holster. You look at your own reflection in the side mirror. The eyes staring back are flat, hollow, completely devoid of the man who took this job 3 years ago. You don't feel guilt anymore. You don't feel fear. You don't feel much of anything. You are just a ghost, haunting the narrow spaces between the reinforced glass and the next target. The engine hums quietly beneath you, and in a dead, even voice, you tell the driver to pull out into the night.